Hi, everybody. I'm just going to get my Instagram going, and then we'll be ready to go with Crushing Doubts Q&A. As always, I wish there was not this delay, but we haven't figured out a system that works better than this yet. Here we go. Should be going live on Instagram now. Okay, everybody, we are ready to go. Welcome to Crushing Doubts Q&A. It's Thursdays at 6 p.m. Eastern, 3 p.m. Pacific. And as always, I like to start at the beginning. I hope it's not too repetitive for everybody, but what I need to do is just kind of tell you about why are we here, especially for people who are tuning in for the first time. This is a Q&A about mind-body issues. And what are mind-body issues? So these are, or symptoms. These are symptoms or issues that are physical issues of all different kinds, from head to toe, that come from our mental state, our emotions, our thoughts. All of these things drive whatever goes on up here, drives what happens down here, everywhere. So I sometimes think of the body as an extension of the brain, just one big brain. And I really do think of it that way. They're one thing. And we see this all the time with everyday experience, like crying and blushing, or even just your face. Your face is a constant expression of mind-body experience. And that's why people can read so well what's going on inside you, because they can see what's happening right on the outside. But we don't think about it that way in terms of all symptoms. Now, how did I get into this line of work? So I was already a therapist. I was interested in helping people. I had had therapy when I was younger and found it helpful. I had therapists in my family. But then when I was 28 years old, I bent over to tie my shoelaces, and I felt a little twinge in my back. And I thought, that sucks, and little aches and pains. But some part of me thought, what if this turns into something bigger? And that what if turned into 8 years of chronic everyday back pain. Now, I see some people already, I'm going to answer questions, but I see some people making reference to my book. My book just came out. Here it is. Just came out January 30th. And in the book, I tell the whole story. And one of the reasons I tell that story is because, thank you for putting that up. So you can get my book at www.crushingdoubtbook.com. You can also just go to www.crushingdoubt.com, and it's right on the front. But this will take you directly to the book link. And I do want to mention one thing. For people who buy the book from our site through this link, you actually can get a discount, a one-time discount, when you buy the book on the seminars. And I'm going to talk about what the seminars are. These are videos that teach all about the mind-body process. Why do I do this Q&A? For the same reason I do the seminars, for the same reason I do everything. I want to give you all the things that I wished I had when I was suffering, just the information, the options, the support. And so on my website, you can get the book, you can get the seminars, which here's one of the things I wanted. I wanted answers. This was only after I discovered the mind-body process and what was going on. There were too many answers and not enough answers at the same time. And I needed to make sense of it. Well, that's what the seminars do. The book also does it, but it's in a different form. The seminar is in a nice curated video form that gets you ready for my group membership, where we do these kinds of Q&As. They're live, not recorded Zoom calls, and we get so much further in these discussions. Now, let's talk about what we're going to talk about in the Q&A and in the groups or wherever we go. The whole idea is that if you can make sense of your symptoms and you can understand how you're going to understand them and control them, then your fear and your doubt goes down. And when that happens, it's changing what's going on up here. And so when you change what's going on up here, you change what's going on in the whole body. And we're going to talk about my system of how to do that. So I'm going to introduce my system in a second. I'm going to say hi to some people first. Darlene, thank you for joining us here. Catherine Toomer, good to see you. Felipe, thanks for joining us as well. I see Hillel has joined us on YouTube. Dorisa says, hi, Dan and everyone. Good to see you, Dorisa. Jamie says, hi, Dan and Crushing Doubt community. Thanks for joining us, Jamie, and pointing out the community feel that we really have here. Beatrice says, hi, all. Good to see you, Beatrice. Karen Isaacs, good to see you here. Kasim, good to see you. Hi, Dan and the Crushing Doubt community. Let me talk about that community experience a little bit. One of the things that I really, again, everything is about what do other people, what do sufferers need? What do I wish was there? Well, certainly the community I wish was there, but I also wish there was a community, as I look back on it, I wish there was a community that I could talk about mind-body issues without having doubts come up. Now, I'm not saying this is perfect and doubts will never come up from anything that I say, but at least the goal is there for us all as a community to keep doubts low, to know that we can recover from these things and to talk it through. All right. So that's part of what that community is for. Susan Sereno says, "Hi, Dan and the Crushing Doubt family. The book is amazing." Oh, thank you, Susan. I'm very interested to hear what you guys think about specific parts of the book in general, etc. All right, let's talk about the system that I use, because that's going to help me answer all of these different questions. As I was getting better, one thing that I discovered is, some people talk about how it's about emotions. Other people talk about it's about not paying attention to things and just changing your thinking that way. And what I found is that there's a simple way to organize this that tells me what's happening in each moment. And I developed the system that I call the column system. These are 3 different ways to understand mind-body experience, and that allows us to analyze whatever's happening in the moment, because that's the key. We're analyzing each moment through a mind-body perspective and understanding what do these symptoms tell us about what's happening. So the column system got their name because when I first started working with people after getting better myself, after discovering Dr. Sarno and then understanding more and more about the mind-body process as I explored from there, a couple months later, I was better. I couldn't believe it. And I started working with people. And I would have people take a sheet of paper and divide it into, you guessed it, 3 columns. The emotions column is for the onset and uptick of symptoms. So when the symptom first comes on, or when a symptom that's always there is much worse all of a sudden, or even when it goes down, what that's telling us is that something is happening in your emotional life. And the emotions column is to take that emotional information and get really good at pulling it out of unconscious experience and making it something you're aware of. Now, why does that help? Because if you do that, you take away the function of that particular type of mind-body symptom, which is distraction. The symptom is there to distract from the unconscious emotion. If you make that unconscious emotion conscious, there is no more need for that symptom, and therefore you can control acute onsets and upticks in symptoms. That's fantastic, but most people come to see me or come seeking out my information because they're having what I call seemingly chronic symptoms that are pretty much always there, don't budge much. If anything, they go up a little bit, but they just stay there. Well, as it turns out, some people will say, oh, search for the emotion. But I call that beating your head against the emotional brick wall, because an emotion doesn't tell why a symptom stays there for 8 years or 4 years or even 3 months. If you're going for longer than even just a week or so, you're already into a process that I call doubt. This is the doubt column. The doubt column is about your thinking. And it's pretty natural, if you think about it, why this would happen. When you keep having symptoms and they don't go away, what do you start to think? You start to think, this is not going to go away. I can just expect more of the same. We're not insane. We're gonna expect that what we're seeing is what we're gonna continue to get. Now, fortunately, that's not actually true, because we can do something to change our thinking, and the thinking controls this process. But most of us didn't know that, or maybe even still don't know that. And so I teach about that in the doubt column and help people understand their thinking. When that happens, the symptoms start to break up. Now, what are we doing there? Instead of those acute onsets and upticks in symptoms and taking away the distraction function, instead we're taking away a different function. We're changing thinking, and we're changing thinking so that our brains can recognize we're actually safe. We can recognize that we thought we needed protection, but we don't. So the function of doubt column symptoms, those persistent, seemingly chronic things, is protection. The symptom is there to protect. Now, it's like a helicopter parent. It's protecting in ways that we don't need protection. But we're not going to be able to safely give up that protection until we know we're safe. So the doubt column is a place where we look at the thoughts enough that we get it wrestled to the ground and start to see, you know what, I actually am safe. You can't fake it. You can't just tell yourself you're safe. But once you believe you're safe, the thinking changes and you can break up those symptoms. And then you can start to deal with moment-to-moment experience more. The last column is the power column. The power column is something that you don't tend to discover until doubt is down and you've discovered your emotions decently enough. But once you've done that, you start to understand parts about your relationship with yourself. The power column is about your relationship with yourself, and underneath all of those symptoms, once we remove those acute onsets and upticks and the distraction, and once we remove the seemingly chronic and the protection function, then underneath that, it's a really interesting thing. The symptoms are actually, at base, trying to help us. They're trying to communicate something. So the function in the power column of the symptoms is communication. Now, again, you won't discover it until doubt is down, until you master some of the emotional work. But once you do that, there's an emotional communication in the power column. So the emotions and power column are both emotional columns, but the emotions column is where you discover awareness about it, just getting the idea of it. The power column is where you receive the communication so you can understand what to do about it. In each of these columns, I have very specific things we do to get answers. Now, with all that in mind, if you take away the distraction function, you take away the protection function, or you receive the communication, you've given yourself reason to not have to have these symptoms. So it's almost like learning a language here. And that's why I teach these columns before I dive into questions. Now, let's get to the questions. I'll answer them in this column sort of way. We'll talk about some of the resources available to help you, and then we'll keep right on going. I am going to try to keep this Q&A to an hour long. It's been running over a lot. So towards the end, there's going to be a speed round if I run out of time. We'll see. All right, let's get to some questions. Big Red Bass, thank you for joining us here. And Rita, good to see you here. Rita is a mind-body coach in the field who actually did my training, so she knows the columns well, and a good friend of mine. Okay, good to see you, Rita. All right, Hillel says, hey, Dan and everyone, I'm about to go on an hour-long drive, so I'm writing now. All right, that was smart. Good foresight. Hillel then said, I am very deeply and unusually hurt that despite repeatedly telling my friends to celebrate my IDF exemption, they don't truly acknowledge it or share my joy. Now, for anybody who doesn't know, the IDF is the army in Israel. And Hillel was looking to get an exemption because he's got mind-body issues. And, he's in a lot of pain at the moment. Now, he and I are doing some great work bringing down doubt and learning about the emotions and expanding into power. And it's all flowing very well. I think he would agree with that. But part of that experience was to figure out what to do about this IDF experience. So let's I'm going to read everything Hillel said and then I'll answer actually, because I'm sorry you were hurt by that, Hillel, and I can understand why. I haven't felt this hurt in a long time. It triggered my trauma of feeling unseen. I don't have the energy to elaborate right now, but this isn't really the place for a deep discussion. That's okay. We can still get actually very far with a particular reading of it. I went to the restroom and then left for home deeply hurt. And yet I couldn't tell them or confront them. Everything must always stay inside at all costs. I don't know what the power move is. Hillel says, you make sense and your symptoms make sense. Now that's the overarching kind of principle of my system and my ideas, is that we can make sense of these symptoms. And once we do, it changes things. So he's reiterating that. And he says, I'd love to hear your advice on the power move, Dan, but also some validation for why I feel this way and why it hurt me so much. Thank you. All right, Hillel, I'm going to start backwards. I'm going to start with the validation because I do see why this hurt you so much. This felt like a really big danger to you. And what would you want from your friends? You would want them to really celebrate it. You'd want them to say, I'm going to show that I love you by saying, I'm so glad you are out of harm's way. I'm so glad you feel safer now. Like, it's a big deal. And I just think you weren't feeling seen because here you are in this moment feeling a certain way. And they're kind of like, oh, that's nice. It's not just nice. It's a huge deal for you. And for you to feel seen, I think you need that understood. Now, I understand it. At least I hope that that's the way it's coming across as you listen to this, Hillel. But I think you really wanted to feel the true love for you around this important moment. And important moments are very crucial, and they can reveal things in the power column about who's with me and who's not. They can be a big deal. So I completely get this, and I understand why you'd be deeply hurt about it. Now, let's talk about the power move. Now, when we're talking about the power move, what does that mean? It means what's the move, and there can be multiple moves, by the way, but what is a move, or what's the deepest move that feels right for you about how you can adjust, how you're going to sit in your relationship with you? Because that's what the power column is. It is a relationship with you. The goal is to get into self-alignment, to find peace with you. Now, we can't be there all the time, but we can use the column to get there as often as possible. And that's living in the power column. So the power move is going to depend on the moment, Hillel. There's going to come a time where the power move is going to be to say something, but that may not be this moment, because sometimes the power move is to not say something. If you're like, I don't trust this person here, not doing it now. I need to give some space to have them see what they're missing, to see who catches on. I don't know what the power move is going to be for you, Hillel, but what we could do is we could talk about it and have some back and forth. Now, this is for everybody. On my website, www.crushingdoubt.com, there are various resources that you can utilize to get better. One is to get the book, which pretty much explains everything that I think about all of this stuff. That's why it took so long to write. Another is the seminars, which teach all about the mind-body experience. They bring down doubt. Let me put this down so you guys can see that. They bring down doubt by explaining everything from every angle so you can see it all fits together. This is why one person says this and one person says that. But then the third resource is one where everything kind of flows in this direction, which is my group memberships. And why is this important? Because this is a way you can have direct interaction with me 3 times a week, once, twice, or 3 times a week. It's up to you, but I'm accessible 3 times a week. And that's in addition to this Q&A. That's another thing that I felt was really necessary. I once got to talk to Dr. Sarno. I talked to him for 2 minutes, and I love that I got to talk to him before he passed away. But what he basically said to me, which ended up being helpful, but also exposed a wish that I had, was, well, why don't you just work on it? And I thought, oh my God, I have to do it myself. It's hard to do it yourself sometimes. And these groups can allow people to have direct time with me. And it's not just to ask their questions. It's so they can listen to me answer questions back and forth. And why is it different than the Q&A? Well, it's because we're having a live interaction right there. So if I have a question and I need to get some specific information, I can ask that question and they can ask me their question. And we get really a lot further in a short amount of time. So like in a 5-minute or maybe 10-minute window, we can get super far on what are your next steps? Where are you at in the columns? So, this is a place to go with that experience and work on different things. When we're talking about what's the power move, let's get back to Hillel's question. If we were in group, I'd explore that with him. I'd be like, well, would this part feel powerful? And here's the thing. You guys know a lot of stuff. You guys know much more than I do about what goes on for you, but I know what questions to ask. So unlike this Q&A, I can ask lots of questions of you that help me get information that fills in gaps and points me in the right direction so I can know how to guide you. And that's what I would do with you, Hillel, right now, is to find out, well, okay, would it feel good to do this? Would it feel good to do that? Why not? Why? And through that discussion, we'd figure out what that power move is. Now, I would say this. One part of the power move is you must stay aligned with you. Do not start attacking yourself for this as if you're wanting too much. You're not. Self-alignment knows that your body is telling you everything you need to know. Your soul is telling you everything you need to know. You know that you needed this. And it may be that there are certain friends that you can get it from and others that are not. Here's another potential action step. Action steps are new ways of thinking, sometimes new ways of doing things, but generally new ways of thinking that can change the perspective. And so, Hillel, one action step might be, don't be afraid to find out who everyone is. I know you say you got to keep everything inside, but that's only because you don't want to find out who everybody is. If you go ahead and find out who everybody is, and you'll do that by just revealing who you are and what you need, you're going to get a lot of good information. Some of it's going to be disappointing, but it's true anyway. So you might as well find out. That's where we're headed. I don't know if you're there yet, but we'll see. Okay, I'm going to say hi to a couple more people. Knox Flamma, good to see you here. He said, hey, am I late? Just slightly, but hopefully you mostly missed the preamble where I was talking about my system, so you actually know it. Bona Bonita, thanks for joining us here. TL Design New York is here. And Jojo Relaxing, thanks for joining us here as well. Alexis Jade, thank you for joining me here as well. By the way, I am seeing a lot of new names, so if you have any questions in the middle, there's no question that's a bad one. Just tell me what's on your mind. We're talking about mind-body issues. You also can email me, dan@crushingdoubt.com, anytime. All right, let's get to some questions on Instagram. Big Red Bass says, I have severe avoidance and can't figure out what the block is. I just want to run from feelings and shut down. All right, so Big Red Bass, here's what I would say. You're giving me information here. And now the next step would be to get a little bit more information because I need to find out what's happening in these columns. Now, You're saying you have severe avoidance, you can't figure out what the block is. So the first thing I would say is this. The block is a symptom. Avoidance is a symptom. Almost everything is a symptom. So what we need to do is analyze it through the columns. Is it a symptom that has an onset or uptick? Like a lot of the time you're not avoidant, but then suddenly you are, or suddenly you're blocked? Because if that was the case, I'd look in the emotions column. If you're saying it's pretty much always there, then I would want to look in the doubt column. I'd want to see what, because it's always there. The symptoms, the way they profile tells us where to go. So I would look at the doubt column and say, all right, well, what are the thoughts that are happening around this? What are you worried about? Worry is a form of doubt. By the way, the forms of doubt are fear, confusion, lack of certainty, and unanswered questions. And unanswered questions is what I call the gold standard of doubt. We want to get there. We want to get to a place where we're not afraid, not super afraid. We're not super confused. We're getting close to certainty and past, enough lack of certainty that we're pretty sure at this point. And then we just have some questions to really nail down what's going on. So if that was the case, that it's kind of always there, that's where I'd be looking. If you find that avoidance and that block feels very, very connected to your relationship with you, though, I'd look in the power column. So big red bass. Our first job here is to figure out what column is the primary column we need to work in. Once we do that, I have got all kinds of things that we do within that column. And by the way, when I say all kinds of things, one of the great parts about my system, as far as I'm concerned, is I've worked to really simplify it to its essence so that you can know what to do when. So big red bass, let's have you follow up with what I just said if you want to, and tell me which of those profiles seems to fit. That's going to tell us where to look. Then we'll get more information and we'll be able to find out, what is that block? Why does the avoidance happen? And that's the you make sense and your symptoms make sense. We can make sense of this. I promise you that. Rita says, hi, Dan and Crushing Out fam. Thanks for saying that, Rita. Glad to have you part of my family. All right. Nox Flamma says, my central nervous system just showed me how truly sensitized it is. LOL. Thusly supporting even further a diagnosis of mind-body syndrome. So I'm either, if you're totally serious about that, I'm sorry you had that flare up because it's not fun. If it's partially just a joke because you were late, and it might even be both. It could be a joke, but also serious. And I think you are at least partially serious. There's all these flare-ups of our central nervous system when we get scared. And I can't tell you how many times that happens a day for everybody, including myself. When you send a text to somebody and you're like, oh, I'm not sure I said the right thing there, your central nervous system starts to go, ah. Now, with the columns, we can understand precisely why, and we can work to get it back under control. Each of these columns is a tool to do that. So at the very least, one of the good things that we can see, Nox Flamma, is that you have support, that this is a mind-body symptom. At the beginning of the work, my goal is to help people see with total clarity that it is a mind-body issue and nothing else. All right. Big Red Bass says always. So we're talking doubt column here. It's always there. So you're having avoidance, you're having a block. What I'd want next, Big Red Bass, is a description of that avoidance pattern. What does it look like? What are you avoiding? And tell me about the block. This is all going to help me understand what are the thoughts, because we're looking in the doubt column. That's thoughts. The emotions column is about feelings. The power column is about relationships with self, with others, and even with your symptoms. So let's follow up with that. Big Red Bass, by the way, said to Hillel, lots of healing to you, sir. I hope you get your exemption. And he did get a year exemption. So, but thanks for rooting for him. That's really, really great. All right. I'm going to get back to some YouTube questions and we'll go from there. Warren Henson, good to see you here. Hi, Dan. I love your book. That's music to my ears. And we'll be joining your group next week. That's even more music to my ears. I can't wait to work with you. My biggest challenge is eliminating doubt that I can get better, even if my body is okay. Now, this is a great point. Let me see if you said anything else, Warren. I want to make sure I get that all in. All right. So this brings up an important point that I just want to highlight. And here's one thing that I want to say. In the doubt column, there are 3 levels of doubt. The first level of doubt is, do I have a mind-body issue, or is this some kind of structural thing? That's what I call level 1 doubt. Level 2 doubt is, I know it's mind-body, but I'm worried that my mind-body issue is harder than other mind-body issues. It's a harder symptom, or it's something that people said is harder to get rid of, whatever it is. That's level 2 doubt. Level 3 doubt is, I know it's mind body. I don't think my symptoms any harder to conquer than others, but I'm not sure I can do it. I think there might be something about me that's defective, or I'm not going to be able to do it, or I'm not going to be able to manage the process, or I doubt I'm going to be able to use the system. These are all doubts about you in that. Now, Warren, I'm not sure where you fit in with that, but there's a little clue here. You said my biggest challenge is eliminating doubt that I can get better, even if my body is okay. Now, the even if my body is okay is essentially saying to me, your level 1 doubt and potentially even your level 2 doubt is low enough. And what you're saying is level 3 doubt is there. Am I going to be able to make this work? And it can be even in generic, general form. You don't even necessarily have it articulated why you wouldn't. My job, and we'll do this in group, is to talk with you and expose what is the thinking that gets you to think you're not going to be able to do this. I'm very good at pinning down what is the doubt, and I'm also very good at hammering the doubt to bits, to the point where you can say, I think I can give that one up. I think you're right. That's a big part of my job. So together we'll work to that. I always say this, it doesn't matter what I think, it matters what you think. So Warren, we're going to find out what you think, and I'm going to help you change that. And I really will. That's the key, is that we actually are going to change something. Sometimes people say to me, well, how am I going to get better? Because I always think this. And then I tell them, but you're not always going to think that, because I'm going to give you more information. And that's going to get you better. Warren, I can't wait to work with you. And I'm glad you are loving the book so far. Can't wait to hear more about that as well. All right, Shelby Geyer, good to see you here. Hi, all. You said you're much more confident in my way of seeing many different, she means my way of seeing different aspects, and can even say why. Can you elaborate? Yes, I will. It looks like you have another question after that, so I'm going to just answer this one first. So I'm not saying this to say that other people are wrong about things, because actually in the mind-body field, what I find more often than not is that they're right about a certain portion of what they're saying, but they don't have a fully well-rounded picture that explains enough for me. Even Dr. Sarno, much as I love him, it didn't answer every question that I had. And I needed something that was a kind of a system and a setup that explained, all right, well, why does this work for some people? Why does this work for some people? Why do some people get book cures? Why do some people not? Why do some people have, these things that seem to need like somatic tracking or something like that, and others don't? And the reason that I have more confidence in what I say is that I'd really tried to look at the whole picture and say, how does this all make sense together? And I feel like I have it. I feel like you can ask me any question and I'm going to know how to explain how does it fit into the whole thing. The 3 columns cover everything. And I looked, I was like, is there a 4th column? Is there something I'm missing? I have never found a problem that the columns can't solve within the mind-body experience. And sometimes even just in the psychology experience. So that's why I have such confidence, because of the totality of it. And because I have some qualities that I like about myself. One of them is I'm very, very thorough, very thorough. If there was something that was missing, not good enough for me. Not good enough for me. I have this thing in my book that I call Kepler theories. So when they were trying to figure out how the stars aligned in space, Copernicus figured out that the Earth was rotating around the sun, not the other way around. But they thought it was just in concentric circles, just a circular orbit. But the stars didn't align. They aligned about 80% of the time. It was Kepler who said it's elliptical. And once we got that ellipse in there, it aligned 100% of the time. So we're looking for Kepler theories. 100% describes everything. And that's why my goal and my job is to be able to answer every question to your full satisfaction. Now, that doesn't mean I will necessarily do it every time right away. There may be follow-up questions, but one of the reasons I have much more confidence in what I do is I'm going to leave no stone unturned. I'm going to go to your next question and your next question and your next question until you're like, holy shit, I don't have questions. That's the goal, ultimately. And it may sound like a tall order, but it's actually not. When you really understand what's happening here, you can get down to the essence very fast. All right, hope that helps, Shelby. All right. By the way, if I ever miss a question, please do let me know. I don't want to skip over anybody. All right, Catherine Toomer. Hi, Dr. Dan. I wanted to tell you that I seem to be having greater success, I love that already, at dealing with my symptom of obsessive, fear-based, intrusive thoughts. When a load of them hit me in the morning, I now have a tiny bit of distance from them. And relatively soon, I can look on them as a pile of old armor. Oh, this is great. No longer useful. Let go and move on. I think these thought-feeling blobs have been a coping mechanism, i.e., leading me to narrow my life so I can handle fearful thoughts. Like my brain thinking these distractions will protect me from life. I certainly don't want this anymore. Never did. But now, hopefully, my conscious brain can convince my ancient brain of that. Also, happy to have your book. I'm excited about that too. Have only read the initial quote, Schopenhauer, and it's perfect. Well, all credit to him, but I'm glad I found it. Looking forward to the rest. Thank you. This is great, Catherine. Very exciting to hear you have these leaps forward, and this is kind of how it feels when you. And this is stepping into power. I would say is starting to see. Oh, that's an old way that I don't need anymore. That old armor. It's really interesting when we put something down like that, and sometimes we have to do it moment to moment combat. We can't always be there. But you're gaining the ability more and more to do it. And how did we do it? So the way the system works is you bring down doubt, then you learn about emotions, and then you flow towards power. That's always the flow of the column structure. Occasionally, we're dipping in different columns in a different order, but that's the general flow. And Catherine, I think that's what we did. When you first came to see me, there was a lot of doubt. We hammered doubt, hammered it. And then we started to make more and more sense of you through these different columns. First through onsets and upticks with emotions, and then in power and how you were relating to yourself. Right here, I'm seeing lots of stuff about how you're relating to yourself. And you're recognizing these obsessions aren't just a symptom, they're a way of relating to yourself. And you're giving yourself a new option. You have that distance. And now you can just say, you know what? The thing is to do here is let go instead of master these or take them seriously. And it's interesting. You said it was leading you to narrow your life so you can handle the fearful thoughts. Now you're going to be able to go in the opposite direction, expand your life, and those thoughts are not going to be relevant. Catherine, thank you so much for sharing. That's just awesome. So exciting. All right. Shelby Geyer has another question. In your book, it says, in order to recover most effectively, we must have as close to zero doubt as possible. How do I do this? Don't want to revisit Western Med as they gave me another label. I don't, hold on. Then you said added. I don't think I could use the mind body approach. Did I miss something, Shelby? Okay. Well, I don't know yet, but I'm going to answer what you asked here. So, how do you do this? How do you get to close to zero doubt as possible? Well, I mentioned those levels of doubt. With level 1 and level 2 doubt, level 1 doubt especially, you can really just look at science and logic. And what you have to do is basically decide, if the science and logic is all there, why do I keep worrying about this? I remember one time I was getting better after reading Dr. Sarno, but I wasn't all the way there. And I was doing these back stretches, and I said to myself, do I believe in this or not? That was a really important intervention. Do I believe in this or not? And I decided, well, I do. It all fits together better than any other explanation. So Shelby, one way you can do it is to measure this mind-body experience, or the columns way of describing things, and see, does this make a hell of a lot more sense than anything else I've ever heard? Because if it does, that's a theory that's worth just saying, I'm ready. I'm ready to accept that and have full belief in it. If you are constantly getting other theories that are worse than the mind-body theory or the columns-based theory, then, at a certain point, I would think you would say, I'm ready to join this. Now, there are 3 levels of doubt, though. There can be level 2 doubt. Well, but maybe my symptom's harder to tackle. Well, you can get that with some science and logic, but some of that is about recognizing your own relationship to doubt, your own ability to trust your own reality. Shelby, we've talked about this before, but that's really the gist for you, is how can we get you to trust your own reality so solidly that you can just know something? It's almost like some people have trouble being certain about anything. And Shelby, I mean this fondly, but I think you're one of them. It's hard for you to just fully settle into something, which makes you ask a question that you've already asked before. You even know the answer, but you're like, I need that reassurance. And I get that. And I'll give you that reassurance as often as you need it. But once you feel within yourself that you can trust your own reality, you're not going to need that anymore. Now, how do you do that? That's power column work. And so, Shelby, the best way you can do it, sometimes cost is an issue for people, so they can't do it. But in some way, and it could be from reading my book, look at those power column chapters, Shelby. Chapter 6 is the power column chapter, and chapter 9 is the action steps of the power column. 6 and 9. Those are your chapters that are going to teach you all about how can you get to certainty with yourself. Go ahead and read those if you haven't read those yet, and then we'll have more to talk about with that. All right. All right. Karen Isaacs. Oh, hallelujah. I finally got into the community site. Yay. I'm sorry it's been so hard. Posted, but now can't find it. Do you mean can't find what you posted? I'll show you where that is. I'll tinker with it to get it. Look under the submit questions portion, and that's where you're going to find it. So you got to go to the it's not the community feed, but it's the groups, CD groups. Under that, you'll see submit your questions. We're still working to clean this up to make sure that it's intuitive, but and it's still not perfect. So I'll work on it, but thank you. I was going to come to group yesterday, but felt awful. Couldn't even talk or lift head, exhaustion. All right. Sorry to hear that, Karen. But at the same time, it's probably an emotions column uptick. And we can find out more about it. All right. Now, for the day before of sneezing, sniffles all day, I think it was due to delayed reaction of conversation that made me sad. In moment of conversation was fine. Not really sure, though. Question how to be ahead of it. All right. I see you'll say you'll explain tomorrow in group, but let me answer this in brief. So first of all, you're going to be able to get ahead of these things more and more by starting to think about how the emotions column works. When you know your emotions column themes, you're going to be able to say, I feel fine, but there's no way I would be. Not based on that theme. You're going to be able to not, it's almost like you learn to take your body at its word over what your mind thinks. I'm a very aware person, and yet my body often tells me you're having a feeling about something that you didn't know about. Happens all the time. So one way of getting ahead of it is start assuming that and start looking at the types of situations so that you might be able to bring it out sooner without it becoming a symptom. The second way you can do it, though, which isn't exactly ahead of it, but can still work really fast, is to recognize that a symptom is telling you something's up. I always take my body at its word. My body knows better than my mind. If I'm having a symptom, something's up. I think about why then, right then, the timing right then. So we're going to keep working on this. And as you get more control in the emotions column and more awareness in that emotions column, Karen, you can get ahead of it, or at least you can know I can shut this down really fast. All right. Nox Flamma says, no, it's real. Haha. I went into crisis urgent mode. I'm sorry about that. Over this small parking error. Oh, I've been there many, many times over these little things, and ended up making it so much worse, and the panic making me drive in a way that likely made me come off as a lunatic. I've been there myself as well. He says, thanks. I'm always grateful to be here. Doubt is one of the big bads for me, and I'm ready to further rise to the occasion. I love working with you guys on these things, and I'll do that. Nox Flamma, this thing that you're describing, by the way, this is a doubt experience where, your thinking is like getting really worried about something. Fear is the emotional form of doubt. So there's thinking involved, but you're also having an emotional experience. And, getting really freaked out about these things is a fear-based thing. Now, fear is very, very related to the power column. These columns relate to each other and they help each other. What I'm hearing here is just screaming power column work to me, Nox Flamma, because power column work is where you can come to feel much safer. That is where you come to feel the most safe of anywhere. We need safety in all the columns. Doubt is safety from the thinking. I can get this thinking under control. I don't have to be worried. I don't have to go with these worries that my brain is kicking into my space. But that's kind of the top level of it. Then in the emotions column, we have to feel safe that we're going to be able to control symptoms that come up. And awareness is going to help us do that. And then the ultimate safety is safety with the self. That's why I'm hearing, oh man, I hope that we get to, sink our teeth into this together about power column work, one way or another, whether it's from the book or if you want to come to groups or you do the seminars or some combination. We can get you to a place where you feel just a lot safer. And that's what I'd want for you. Again, making sure I didn't miss anything. All right. Felipe says, hope you're well, Hillel. Wishing you the best and talk soon. Thanks, Felipe. Thanks for cheering him on. Laura Brown, 1416, thanks for joining us here. Scotty Styles, thank you for joining us here. Scotty says hello and then has his wonderful emojis that I love. And he said, we love your thoroughness. Thanks, Scotty. I appreciate it. SW Wapnil Neha Panchal. hope I pronounced the name right. Sorry if I butchered it. Okay, Rudy, thank you for being here. He calls me Pain Detective, which is a nickname I love for multiple reasons. Sherlock Holmes was one of my favorite heroes growing up, and I did end up basically being a detective. I know these symptoms, and I know what it means. Amir, my friend, good to see you here. All right, let me jump back over to YouTube. Let's see. Okay, Jamie. I went to my mother's house today, and as soon as I got out, I got a stronger dizziness, kind of got me very off. I want to say it was the strongest dizziness I've gotten since 8 years. I didn't like it. I surely get that. That makes sense, Jamie. At the same time, weirdly, there's some good news in this. Now, it's not good news to have that symptom, but when you can see how clearly that the emotional life is linked to the symptoms, your doubt about whether it's mind body or not just goes down and down and down. And Jamie, I know your doubt's relatively low about that in general. Your doubt is more about, can I reverse it? You will be able to reverse it, but you're going through a lot of power column processing. This is an emotions column symptom. It shot through the roof right when something was happening. We need to get awareness of what specifically is bothering you there. We know the generality. You're having, conflict with your mom and family stuff, and whether they're controlling you and whether they let you do anything you want to do. That's all. We know the basics, but we got to get the specifics. And if we can do that, that all feeds the power column work, as you can see what's happening. So as bad as this is, and I know it really sucks, it's not going to stay this way because you're going through that process. As you guys get to understand what's happening here, you're going to get better. That's all we need to do. All right. Shelby, in your book, it says when incorrect thinking goes unchecked, the body lives in that reality, and when we believe it, it becomes true. Are you saying we can create a disease in our body by believing in it? No, I'm not really. Here's what I'm saying. Most symptoms aren't diseases. Most symptoms are mind-body symptoms. And you can create a symptom, a mind-body symptom, just by believing it. You cannot create, let's say, cancer or diabetes by believing that you have that. That's not true. That is not true at all. And the difference is autoimmune issues, they become truly medical. Now, is the mind-body component important in that? Yes, because deeply unprocessed trauma is a major risk factor for these autoimmune issues. The ACE study shows us that. People who have adverse childhood experiences, especially unprocessed ones, they are more likely to develop autoimmune issues, including cancer, heart disease, diabetes, and more. But notice, that's if it's really unprocessed and a lot of trauma. And even then, it takes a long time to get to that point. So most of you are going to be totally safe from that, especially if you're doing the processing of the work. It's funny, even if you're worrying is actually helpful against autoimmune stuff because you're processing things consciously, even if it's hard. Ultimately, the goal would be to do this without having to worry, but you're not in any danger of that, Shelby. I know you are worried you are, but you're not. What I'm talking about is regular mind-body issues, the ones that are totally reversible and don't get you into medical danger. All right? Shelby said, last one, maybe. Why would my blurry vision get worse as the day goes on or with screens? That's because of doubt, Shelby, in all likelihood, because you have a plausible reason to believe that your vision would get worse, and you're a worried, doubt-based person in general. So doubt's like, whoo, I can have a field day here because of this, that, and the other thing. When the eclipse happened in April, I was in the direct path of totality. And I said to myself, there are going to be so many people with eye symptoms, mind-body eye symptoms tomorrow, just because it's plausible. And then guess what happened? I had mind-body symptoms in the eyes the next day. I was like, I think I'm seeing things weird. And I was like, no. I mean, I recognized that I was having these thoughts, but I dismissed them. I was like, no. So why would you get that? Because doubt is feeding you information that seems plausible. All right. Again, if I'm missing questions, please do let me know. All right, Kasim. I had a great improv class last night. Awesome. I was the least experienced, as most had years experience. So much great support and lots of reassurance that I'm doing really well in improv. I stuck with peanut butter and followed my intuition. That's a reference to something that I said to Kasim about that you don't want to ask for the laugh. You want to ask for the peanut butter if that's what's in the scene. And it paid off with lots of laughs. Thanks for the tip. My pleasure. Feeling really good about this newfound passion. That's awesome, Kasim. It's so exciting. And I can see why you'd be really good at it. And as you and I hone moment to moment thinking, we're going to show you basically that what you do inside and how you're feeling inside, that guides what makes people laugh. So you're going to be really funny. And I'm excited about it. I mean, you're already really funny, but you're going to be able to channel that. All right. Jamie says, I'm also dealing with concerns of death and the possibility of going to hell. I think this might be a clue to the fear I have inside me. I need help in this area. So I will definitely be providing help with that. This is power column work. How do you get to peace with yourself? And Jamie, what I will say is one of the things that I can tell you about as the next moment to work on, because we're always looking for what's the next step, is we've got to help you see the reason you are fearing you're going to go to hell and all that stuff, that was fed to you. It was fed to you. You know, you get to make your own decisions about what kind of God there is, or what kind of experience there is in afterlife, or what kind of value system is there in the universe, or however you want to answer that. But you were fed a lot of information, and I think you are owed, and I would say you owe it to yourself to go ahead and try to find your own path in that, your own belief system. Because I can tell you, everything you were fed was not good. Not good. So you can't take it from the past. You have to know that the past is full of toxicity. And I'm sorry. But the good news about that is if we can recognize that, then you don't need to believe it at all. And you said, I think this might be a clue to the fear I have inside me. Hell yes. So sorry for the pun, but that sounds pretty scary. I know you're in no danger because I know you're a good person. It doesn't matter what I think. We got to get you situated in that. Okay. Hillel says, thank you for the support, Dan. It really touched me. My pleasure, Hillel. Leaving home and ignoring their messages feels like the right thing to do for now. Beautiful. The time for confrontation will come later. So notice the power column move of the moment is the power column move of the moment, right? It's what do I do now? Great, Hillel. And I totally get where you're coming from. I've been there, but I am super happy for you. And I think it's wonderful. And you got there by pushing towards power. It's really exciting to watch. It's one of the reasons I love this work. Okay. Nox Flamma said, damn, that impacted me greatly. Noticed an emotional relief in merely understanding a general direction to look at and address within my TMS recovery. So TMS is tension myositis syndrome. That's what Sarno called mind-body issues. Power, the power of knowledge. Yes. See, this is where there can be such turning points just from understanding why is this happening and where are we going to go? You don't even need to know all the answers about how to do it. You just need to know there is a place to go with this. You're never stuck. So this is a great example of it, and I'm really excited about it. And you already got some relief. Let's do more. Okay. Ava Bogopolsky, thank you for joining us here. Please do let me know if you have any questions. I'm going to scan back and make sure I didn't miss anybody. Let's see. Okay. All right. Big Red Bass had, I think, a follow-up. I feel a strong sense of hurt and that nobody ever cared about me. So why try? First of all, that sucks. And I'm sorry. And we need to change that. You know, power column work is going to be, we're going to change that. We're going to get you to a place where at least you're going to find some people who really do value you. That has to happen. Feels pointless and too difficult and painful to face what's underlying. Here's the alternate way of looking at that hopefully can be helpful. When we do look at what's underlying, if you can trust that you make sense and your symptoms make sense, and this is the same thing that I was saying to Nox Flamma that he got a lot out of. If you can trust, we could make sense of this. We can get this to a place where you can see what happened and why without it being as much painful as being encouraging. I see why, and I'm going to make a change. So the first person that has to value you is actually going to be you. And I can help you do that with power column work. And then once you value you, guess what's going to happen? And I was actually saying this to Kasim the other day. When you change, the whole world changes. When you start to value you differently, the whole world starts to value you differently. And that's what needs to happen. It is not fair what's happened to you. You need to be valued, and I can help you get there. So let's work together on it, okay? I can say more about it, but that's the basic gist, and I'm so sorry you've had that experience. It's not true. There's just doubt telling you it is, and your experience is feeding that, I understand, but that's not what's happening. This is about power. We can fix what's going on between you and you. All right. Darlene says the book is amazing. Thank you, Darlene. Taking longer to get through because I'm applying as I go. All right. That's a good sign. Sometimes I'll get an aha moment psychologically. I'm pleased with that, but symptoms peak. Why, as I'm getting closer to having answers and insights, would they go up? Meaning they peak after the insight. Yep. Followed you, Darlene. So here's why. Again, if you notice in this column system, I can always explain where are we looking within the columns and what's the thing that makes sense of things. Darlene, this is about power. This seems to be the theme of tonight in a lot of ways, which makes sense because the more we work at things, the more it flows towards power. But the thing is, the reason the symptoms would go up as you get an aha moment is that there's actually a lot of pain in the insights at first in the power column. I often tell people when you really get to power column insights, it usually hurts more than almost anything for a little while. It's usually about 2 to 3 months when you really, really get it. And when you're just starting to get glimpses of it, your symptoms go up because doubt's saying, don't go there. Don't go there. Doubt doesn't want power to come up because it's afraid you'll get these insights, which then could lead to big time changes, which is what happened for me. But these big time changes were good. Even though I was afraid of them, I look back and I'm like, I wish I had done it earlier. And Darlene, I can help you walk through that. This is another way the group really helps. Not only do the groups really help, but there's also a power column group. So the groups are Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. On Mondays, it's 5 p.m. Eastern. Wednesdays are 12 p.m. Eastern. Fridays are 2 p.m. Eastern. On Tuesdays, I have a 2 p.m. Eastern group that's just power column group. And what that is, it's mostly for people whose doubt is down enough or maybe really fully, and they just want to work on power. So if any of that's of interest to you, let me know. You can check it out on my website, www.crushingdoubt.com, or you can email me, dan@crushingdoubt.com. Either way, Darlene, we're going to work on power one way or another, and the book's going to help with that. Sarah Kelly Burke, thank you for joining us here. I know you're up late because you're in England. Let's see. What do we have? A journey of, Knox Flama says, a journey of 1,000 miles begins with a single step, or whatever they say. That's right. Love to hear it. You're taking that next step, and I think you've taken some others. So we're on our way. All right, we're gonna enter speed round now because I got about 10 minutes left. Let's see. I want to see if we can get through everything. Patty Martin, Dan, thank you for giving us that which you wish you could have gotten from Sarno. I did get a lot from Sarno, so very grateful to him. But yeah, there's pieces that I wish were there. I waited a long time to find you. Thank you, Patty. That's very sweet. I'm so grateful. And your book is such a resource of all you give and teach. I'm so glad. It's so exciting to have you have that in your hands. And because then it's not just a conversation with me and you when you're with me. It can be a conversation with me and you anywhere. You got it right here. I'm patting the book, but you can't see that. All right. Hillel says, because of my trauma, I thought the solution was to confront immediately and expose myself. But I'm learning that sometimes that's not the way. No, if that takes you out of power, that's not the way of the moment. Sometimes it's about making them see what they don't. That's right. There are times where I make people see by withdrawing. And I don't mean that in a passive aggressive way, because it's not passive aggressive. It's actually designed to put me back into power. It's not like I withdraw and try to punish them. I withdraw because that's powerful for me, but it also gives people the best chance to actually see, oh, what's going on here. There's a story that I often have told. I was in a case conference when I was in graduate school, and I was presenting a case, and I got humiliated by the teacher. The teacher said, well, now you're just feeling sorry for yourself, which is not what was going on, by the way. I was trying to process something, and I was being open and genuine about it. And she did that horrible thing. And what did I do? I took care of everybody. I said, okay, well, I'll switch gears. And what I wish I had done is to say, I'll be right back, and just leave her with the bombshell she left in the room. It would have been amazing. And there will come a time where I will do just that kind of thing. Well, maybe not. I don't know if it'll ever happen again, because the way I treat myself, people know not to do that. But if they did, I know I would do that. So Hillel, you're giving them space to see through the absence of you. When people don't value you, give them the presence of your absence. That's, I think, what you're doing. Okay, Warren says, Dan, I have level 3 doubt. Yep, Warren, we're right on it. He says, thank you, Dan. We're going to work on it, Warren. Okay. Teresa said, dang, my old armor is coming back real strong, really strong. Thanks for the insights. Teresa, thank you. I'm glad that you were getting a lot out of that discussion. Okay, Russell Crane's Music says, hi, Dan. How do you recommend dealing with emotional symptoms related to financial uncertainty? So emotional symptoms are revealing emotional information. So what will we do in relation to the financial uncertainty? It depends on the information. If the symptoms going up because financial uncertainty makes you feel too scared and you actually don't want to be in that spot and you want to go in a different direction and be more certain, well, that tells us something. But if the symptoms are going up because you want to do something and financial uncertainty is actually the enemy, then we go in a different direction. So, Russell, what we need to do is find out what's the actual meaning of this. In the emotions column, I say get more specific, right? So we got to get more specific here. What is the financial uncertainty about for you? What is it signifying? And that will tell us what direction to go. All right. Charming L, thanks for joining us here. Pain reprocessing therapy, thanks for joining here as well. Please do let me know if you have any questions. We got a couple minutes left here, and we'll keep on the speed round. Okay, Darlene says, oh, wow, that's exactly what's happening. I have felt my power more and more. The book has pushed me into power. Exactly. Now, don't get scared if the symptoms go up temporarily. It's not going to last. That is a natural phase that I describe. And this is one of the reasons that my book and my system helps is it's like a guide through this whole process so that you don't think, oh my God, I don't know what I'm going to do here. Instead, you will know what to do. Okay. Sarah says, hey, I hope I'm not too late. You're not. Do you have any advice on building self-trust, trusting yourself? I need some pointers. If I'm too late here, ping me an email. So I'll give you the short answer, Sarah, and we'll go from here. You read my book, actually. So what I would do is actually go, I hope this isn't annoying, but I would go back and read chapter 6 and chapter 9 again, but especially, chapter 6 and 9, they're both incredibly important about power. Power is the whole thing here. How do you build self-trust? Now, here's a little pointer, though, how to do it. If you haven't already, Sarah, I would go and construct what I call your core narrative. That is the story about your core suffering self, the main way that you suffered. What needs to happen, Sarah, for you to trust yourself is you have to be able to empathize with what happened to you. And that is what the core narrative does. It's like high-speed therapy. It gets you like years of therapy packed into this one activity if it's done well. And then you can see what happened to you. When you see what happened to you, you have real empathy for yourself for the first time. And when that happens, you're going to trust yourself a lot more. That's my main tip with that, Sarah. We'll go from there, okay? Teresa, we already said that. Let's see. All right. Warren says, Dan, I've seen a lot of TMS approaches and think your column system is brilliant. Thank you, Warren. That's really encouraging. I appreciate it. My symptoms have been terrible overnight. Emotions column, right? Yep. Fear of being awoken by pain at night. Okay, so the fear of being awoken at night, that's drifting into doubt. Oh my God, this is going to be bad. Well, I'm not going to be able to stop it. That's doubt. But the onset is emotions column for sure. So let's look at the onset. And that's going to do two things. It's going to help get those symptoms under control so that you feel safe and that there's things to do with those onsets. But it's also going to bring down doubt because you're like, ooh, if I can control this because of mind-body stuff and the way that I'm thinking or the way I'm dealing with my emotions, well, then my doubt's going to come down. All right, positive wellness. Good to see you here. It's been a while, but good to see you back. So Warren, I hope that answers your question, but you're right on it. In this case, I would do emotions column work first, unless the doubt is really huge, in which case you always do the doubt first. All right. Shelby Geyer says, yep, level 1 doubt here because of my fear diagnosis. Yep. All right. Teresa says, I had a lot of mind-body knowledge, but did not know how to feel. Big upticks with ankle and exhaustion, level 1, 2, and 3 of doubt. Yep. So, a huge part of Teresa, I think, is to do some emotions column work to get more specific for those onsets and upticks to help you feel more control. Okay, Christina Martin says, how do we stop going back in the past and thinking, oh, I remember this pain and symptom, then keep thinking about it and thinking it will never go away? Okay, Christina, this is true for every answer I give. This is just my first answer. And I want you to do follow-up questions. We're going to need to do most of that next week because we're going to wrap up here shortly. But my first answer is this. So you said, how do we stop going back in the past and thinking, I remember this symptom? Well, here's the thing. If you can understand why the symptom was there and you can understand how to make it go away, that's going to make everything safer. So we need to build in the structure, and that's what the columns do. So I'd say, get my book, or get my seminars, or come to see me in group, or all of the above, or some of the above. Because if we can just make sense of this, you won't be afraid of that symptom being there in the first place. It's a great relief to be able to control your symptoms. And that's a big part of what we do here. Okay, Teresa said, I do have autoimmune disease. I felt great after cataract surgery. My digestive system is so much better after stopping medication. So now I am trying to go without. All right. You're making gains. That's great. Teresa says, I feel same as Darlene. So maybe that's a power column thing. We'll look at that. Jamie says, thanks very much. Sometimes I really need to hear things like you said and positive reinforcement. Of course, it's one of the many things that I wish I had had more of. So here it is. Christina says, how do we stop thinking that if the symptoms don't go away, our bodies are actually going to create something terrible because we are worrying about them? All right. Well, this relates to the question that Shelby asked. Nothing bad is going to happen from a mind-body process. It's deeply unprocessed emotions, trauma, and the mind-body process that tends to lead to, autoimmune type stuff. If you're worrying, you're actually safe, weirdly enough. And I'm not instructing people to worry, but I'm just saying if you are worried, you're already processing. Okay. Now the key is to do it without the worry. So you're not actually in danger, Christina. Now, it doesn't matter what I think, it matters what you think. But as we talk about this, as we make sense of things, you're going to see I'm not in danger because I know what to do about it. And actually, I'm already doing some of that. And I'm already doing the main things that I need to do. You're already doing the main things to prevent really bad things from happening. But now I want to help you get acute symptoms under control and seemingly chronic ones blown out of the water. Shelby Geyer says, had to log off for a second after your autoimmune answer saying it needs medical attention, sent me into hardcore anxiety. But I didn't actually say that, I don't think. This is interesting. So let me see. Let me think back to what you thought I was saying. My autoimmune answer saying it needs medical attention. So cancer is an autoimmune issue. That does need medical attention. But look what you did. You took that and said, well, now I'm in danger because I might have this autoimmune thing. But I've already told you, you don't. You don't have an autoimmune thing. So it's actually totally irrelevant to you. And how do we get to those autoimmune things? It's by not processing things. I'm telling you, people with autoimmune things, very frequently, they're people who are they're some of the nicest people, but they aren't even complaining themselves. They aren't even worried. They're just like, oh, everything's fine. And then boom. Those are the people that we need to worry about. You're not one of them. I hope that helps. Hillel said, I had a long trauma realization and cry. The everything makes sense stuff is truly remarkable. We'll update more in private. Thank you, Dan. Okay, that's great, Hillel. And that everything makes sense stuff, yes, it's truly remarkable and it's really important. Positive Wellness says, thank you. Really missed being able to join in to hear your amazing expertise. Well, I'm very glad you're back. And we'll do whatever you need to get you answers. All right. Well, then, by the way, just a reminder about the book and ordering it in Israel. Don't worry, I'm working on that. There was an issue with the publisher. We're making a shift that's going to open that up very, very soon. I'm sorry for people, international buyers. It's going to open up very, very soon. Okay. You Make Sense is the antidote for everything about my trauma. We'll update more on that later on. That's beautiful. Okay. We're going to finish up here. What of your resources would most enlighten me about my shoulder pain? Feels like impingement, sharp pain, etc. So I actually had something just like that, Nox Flamma, recently. And it actually, here's the thing I would say. The resource itself isn't what's going to matter. It's more the platform that allows you to feel like you can understand what's happening. So you said structural causation is unlikely. I completely agree. This is not structural. But the key here is to get you the information in the way that's going to work best for you. So, like, if you wanted to get better the fastest, what I would recommend is get the seminars, plow right through those, get all that information, get yourself ready, and come to group. Because nobody gets you better faster than me, actually, because I'm going to get you these answers really, really fast. So that's the fastest way. If money is an issue, though, get the book. Get the book right away. And read through it. But, if you already have the book and then you're wondering what's the next step, then let's talk. Send me an email, dan@crushingdoubt.com. All right. Lots of ways to get you better. But most of the resources, I want to say, like, I got to get you direct access to the information. It can be through the book, through the seminars, through the group, even through these Q&As. But let's just let's work on it together. So again, go to www.crushingdoubtbook.com to buy the book now. There is this one-time offer if you want to get that seminar for cheaper. If you buy a book right there, it leads you into this this option where you can get that seminar for extra cheap. So that's a great way to go, Nox Flam. That's probably what I would recommend most if you don't already have the book, or even if you're willing to buy another book to get into that flow, you could give it to somebody else. So guys, this has been great Q&A as always. Let's keep it up. I will be back here Thursday at 6 p.m. Eastern, 3 p.m. Pacific, and we'll just keep the questions coming. I'll keep those answers coming. All right. You make sense and your symptoms make sense. We'll keep making sense of things. Thank you guys. Have a good night.